While wandering through the brush, you feel a sharp sting surge up the side of your leg, and you fear the worst. Hornet nest, snake bite, fire ants. You look down to see a pudgy worm-like creature, munching leaves without a care in the world. You've been stung by a slug moth caterpillar, and it doesn't even know you're there. Welcome to the Insect Spotlight Project, a channel dedicated to shining a light on insects, spiders, and any other creepy crawlies that get left out of the ecologic spotlight. Today, we're talking about the family Limacodidae, better known as the slug moths. Limacodidae is a family within the order Lepidoptera, the butterflies and the moths. So if you're looking for some more general Lepidopteran info, you can click the link above. So I put out a poll a week or two ago with some popular Lepidopteran families to cover in today's video. And then I threw in slug moths as sort of a wild card pick because I like them. I did not expect them to win, but here we are. Limacodidae is a sizable family of moths. Not massive, but sizable. It comes in at around 1,800 species and can be found on every continent except Antarctica. Their exact placement within the Lepidopteran evolutionary tree is still a bit in flux, but all sides of the debate agree that Limacodidae is a true monophyletic grouping of moths, that is, all descending from a unique common ancestor. Now, don't be fooled by the name slug moth. The moths don't really look slug-like at all. Rather, a more accurate name would be the slug caterpillar moths, as the larvae are the namesake of this group, not the adults. Even their scientific name refers to their gastropodin appearance. Limax means slug, and odes means form or like, so Limacodidae roughly means slug-like. In fact, you could also describe the larvae as limaceiform, an adjective that literally means resembles a slug, which is also a devastating insult, so maybe add that one to your arsenal. Outside of being just generally limaceiform, there are some specific traits you can use when identifying these caterpillars. Limacodid caterpillars have retractile heads, so they're sunken pretty far into the body, making it hard to tell which side of the caterpillar is which. To add to their sluggy aesthetic, their legs are highly reduced, so they seem to undulate and slide across the surface, rather than using those fleshy prolegs that you'll find in other taxa. Also, Limacodid larvae can have fleshy protuberances called scoli coated in dense spines. This is not a defining characteristic, however, as many Limacodids will be completely smooth, and there are plenty of other caterpillars carrying similar spines. Some Limacodids will even be oddly hairy. Looking at you, monkey slug. But just remember, they look like slugs. Sometimes it's going to be that simple. Though there will be some gotcha moments. I don't judge anyone who mistakes a puss moth caterpillar or a different megalopygid for a Limacodid. The wormodom fell over at some point. Come on. Close enough. As for the adults, they're also stout and hairy little guys with retracted heads. Pretty convenient for memory's sake. The wings are going to be fairly rounded, and the abdomens are going to tend to point upward. And once again, I won't judge anybody for mixing them up with the megalopygidae. They're very closely related. But that upturned abdomen on the Limacodids can be a helpful clue. With all this talk of caterpillars and moths, we should probably go over their life cycle. Limacodids, along with the rest of the Lepidoptera, are holometabolists, so they have a complete 4-stage metamorphosis, going from egg to larvae to pupae to adult. When the tiny slug caterpillars hatch from their egg, they already have some of those fleshy protuberances. These will become those bunches of venomous spines found in some species, and others will lose these projections entirely. For the spine-wielding caterpillars, they have sort of an additional step in their development. When they first hatch from their egg, called their first instar, they actually don't feed. They fast. It is not until they reach their second instar after their first molt that they begin feeding. Since their defenses are still developing and they can't really develop those needles in the egg, this might just be a way for them to play it extra safe while they're still kind of unarmed. Remember, those needles are often backed with venom to defend themselves from things like assassin bugs or wasps. And that venom can pack a punch, even for humans. Luckily, a lot of these venomous Limacodids do what they can to be noticed. Just take a look at the saddleback caterpillar or the stinging rose caterpillar. These guys use bright colors and patterns to warn predators that they're a little bit spicy, in hopes they'll back off and leave them alone. This is called aposematism. That doesn't mean you won't accidentally brush one anyway. I myself had a run-in with a spiny oak slug and a saddleback caterpillar, though that second one I intentionally poked because I was curious. It does in fact sting. But not all slug caterpillars want to be seen. Instead of investing in venom, many of them invest in crypsis, blending in with their environment to avoid a run-in with a predator in the first place. And then there's the hairy ones. Take the monkey slug. They're also just straight up venomous. But they do a cool little thing as well, where if a predator grabs one of those hairy arm-like appendages, it breaks off and leaves them with a mouthful of dense, stinging hairs. If you want to sound fancy, you can call them urticating hairs. And it's a good thing the Limacodidae are so well defended, because they certainly aren't outrunning their predators. As mentioned, their legs are highly reduced, and instead of walking on big fleshy prolegs, they undulate and almost slide across the surface on small abdominal suckers. Limacodid larvae even have a spinneret on their abdomen for producing silk to aid in this slide and stick locomotion. Limacodids seem to prefer smooth-surfaced leaves over pubescent ones for this reason. It's harder to slide over a field of small hairs. Speaking of leaves, all Limacodids are herbivorous, and once enough leaves have been consumed, the larvae are ready to pupate. Most Limacodids are tropical, but for those in temperate habitats, a common strategy to wait out the winter is to spin a cocoon and then enter a period of diapause called their pre-pupal stage. So they're in their cocoon, but they're still technically larvae, waiting in a dormant state for the weather to warm up. Once it does, they'll pupate and then emerge as fully fledged moths. Limacodids will actually incorporate some of their spines into this cocoon for added protection during this vulnerable time. So maybe don't go picking them up if you see them. Anyway, when it's time to emerge, the moths will pop the lid off their cocoon and off they go. Limacodids are sometimes referred to as cup moths because of the cup-like shape of their cocoons after emergence. Generally, adult Limacodids don't feed. They're way more interested in finding a mate and laying some eggs. Like many moths, Limacodids primarily communicate by pheromone. In most cases, the female calls or releases the pheromone, and the males answer, tracing the chemical back to her location. That's why the males often have those big comb-like or pectinate antennae. They use these to track the scent of a female. When it's time to lay eggs, the moths with venomous caterpillars will often lay in clusters for safety in numbers, while those with more cryptic caterpillars tend to lay singly and more spread out, as it's presumably harder to keep up the disguise with 15 of your siblings hanging around. The eggs are sometimes rounded, or they can be flattened and scale-like, hugging closely to the plant. One species of note, Doratifera vulnerans, will cover the eggs in her hair for additional protection. And thus, the cycle continues. Now, for the most part, Limacodids aren't really a notable pest. The only agricultural systems in which they can cause some serious damage is in oil palms and coconut, as some species are known to defoliate these plants. And plants kinda need their leaves. They can sting, of course, but for the most part there isn't any real danger there, just discomfort. If you have an allergic reaction, there can be complications, as with any allergy, so still closely monitor yourself if you have a run-in with one. Limacodids do, however, serve our environment in a number of ways, the most important being their ability to transfer energy up the food chain, a fancy way of saying their ability to get eaten. I talk about it a lot in the Lepidoptera video, but caterpillars consume and pass on more plant energy than any other animal taxon. And despite their best efforts, Limacodids certainly add to this statistic. So if you want some of these beautiful slug caterpillars on your property, or some slug moths on your moth sheets, I've got good news for you. Many of these Limacodids are generalists, feeding on a wide array of woody and herbaceous plants. Just make sure they're native to your region. And of course, while you're out hunting for them, stick to the smoother leaves. Anyways, thank you all for listening. And if you like the content, please remember to like and subscribe to keep up to date with future videos. Also, if you have any fun facts I missed, or any favorite Limacodid species, please leave them in the comments below. I always love hearing about them. Peace, y'all.